What happens when the man who built the company from scratch discovers his own managers are breaking labor laws to save payroll? Yarden Zeller had built his retail chain from the ground up, 8 stores across 3 states, all selling sneakers and streetwear. His stores had a reputation for being clean, affordable, and youth-friendly. But lately, customer reviews had dipped at one specific location, Store 4 in Fremont. Complaints ranged from slow service to rude employees, and one caught his attention. Felt like the staff was scared to speak. Weird energy. That one stuck with him. He hated the idea of fear anywhere in his company. So he packed a bag, shaved his beard, threw on thick-rimmed glasses, and dyed his hair a dusty brown. At 49, he still looked young enough to pass as mid-30s. No one at Store 4 had ever met him. He'd hired the entire crew through the district manager. That was the point of scaling. Still, something felt off. He needed to see it for himself. He signed up as a new hire under the name Jordan. The application went through the district manager, who assumed he was a corporate trainee from another city. Yarden made sure it stayed that way. The Fremont store ran with a lean team, 6 employees total. The assistant manager, a quiet woman named Zyla Purnell, trained him on his first day, walking him through the register and store layout. She was patient, clear, and sharp. But there was a nervousness behind her eyes, like she was always watching for something. The store manager, Daryl, didn't show up until after lunch. "Who's the new guy?" Daryl asked, eyeing Yarden from head to toe with a crooked smile. "Corporate trainee," Zyla said, not looking up. "Bet you won't last a week," Daryl muttered, then walked off. Yarden kept his head down and worked. He watched the team. There was a kid named Theo, 17, still in high school, who handled the back stock like a pro. Fast, focused, never complained. Another girl, Bree, looked about the same age, always covering the floor with a smile. She even helped a customer find a limited run pair and gave him tips on how to clean them. Yarden made a note to remember that. But something felt wrong by day 3. Staff looked exhausted. They were quiet when Daryl came around, but lit up when he wasn't on shift. Yarden overheard whispers. "I got asked to stay late again yesterday," Bree told Theo, stuffing a hoodie back into a display shelf. "You clock out first?" he asked. She nodded, eyes down. That made Yarden pause. Later that day, Zyla pulled him aside. "Hey, just so you know, if Daryl tells you to do something off the clock, you don't have to. Legally. Just saying." Yarden blinked. "He tells people to stay after clocking out?" She nodded once, fast. "Especially the younger ones." That night, Yarden stayed late, pretending to clean counters. Daryl returned after his break and called Bree over. "Hey, Bree, I need you to clean the back bathroom. We had a customer mess in there." "I already clocked out," she said, hesitating. "Yeah, and you're still here. What's 5 more minutes? You want to keep this job, right?" Yarden saw her shoulders tense. She walked toward the back without saying another word. He was stunned. That was illegal. That was exploitation. And Daryl didn't even try to hide it. The next day, he caught Theo in the break room. "How often does Daryl ask you guys to work off the clock?" Yarden asked, keeping his voice casual. Theo looked around. "If it's low, he makes us clock out before cleaning or restocking. He says payroll's tight. If we say no, he cuts hours. He's done it before." Yarden's stomach twisted. He'd built this company with pride, fair pay, respect, opportunity. But this was fear and manipulation. He needed to know more. He stayed quiet, watched how Daryl moved, how Zyla flinched every time he barked orders. Yarden noticed the pattern. Teens were pressured, adults avoided confrontation, and good workers were being used for free labor. He started documenting everything. Times, conversations, who was on the clock and who wasn't. He even caught Daryl whispering to Bree again, "Come in early tomorrow. Don't clock in till I tell you." She looked like she was about to cry. That night, Yarden sat in his car, hands gripping the steering wheel. He'd trusted the district manager to hire the right people. He'd trusted the system he built. He'd made a mistake, but now he was going to fix it. By the end of his first week, Yarden was done observing. Every night, he sent himself notes under a dummy email. Names, dates, instructions he heard Daryl give. He was building a timeline, something he could bring to legal and HR without question. But what haunted him more than the labor violations was the way the team had adjusted to them. They didn't argue. They didn't push back. They just accepted it. That kind of silence doesn't come from laziness. It comes from fear. On Monday morning, Zeller arrived early to open the store. She looked like she hadn't slept. Yarden was already inside. He'd volunteered to help with floor prep before opening a task Daryl had dumped on her almost daily. "You're not scheduled till noon," she said, surprised. "I was up anyway," he replied, organizing a pyramid of shoeboxes. Zeller hesitated. "You don't have to pick up my slack. I've got it." "I know. That's not why I'm here." She looked at him for a moment, then went back to logging the shipment. He could tell she didn't trust easily, and after what he'd seen, he didn't blame her. Just before the doors opened, Daryl came in, sunglasses on, holding a large iced coffee. He glanced at the store, then at Zeller. "You finished the restock?" "Almost," she said, not looking up. "Almost not done," he snapped, walking past her. "I asked for it to be done before open." Yarden watched her shoulders tighten, but she didn't respond. She just moved faster. An hour into the shift, a woman came in with her son, asking about a specific pair of basketball shoes. Bree greeted them, offered a check in the back, and returned holding 2 boxes. The boy lit up. Daryl stepped in before she could speak. "We're not holding those anymore. First come, first served." "They're right here," Bree said, confused. "I said no holds," Daryl repeated louder. "We've got limited inventory. You think I'm gonna let some kid stash stock for his friends?" Bree blinked. "I wasn't. Go zone the clearance rack," he cut her off. "Now." The mother frowned. "Is there a problem?" Yarden stepped forward. "No, ma'am. We'd be happy to sell you either pair. That's what they're here for." Daryl stared at him like he'd grown a second head. The woman bought the shoes. As she left, she gave Bree a smile of thanks. Bree mumbled something and disappeared behind a display. In the stockroom, Yarden found her crouched behind a stack of boxes, trying to breathe quietly. "You okay?" he asked. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "You didn't," he said. "You were helping a customer." She wiped her face and stood up. "He's been like that all week. Says I'm getting too comfortable. That I need to be reminded I'm replaceable." Yarden didn't respond. There was no comfort he could offer that would erase what had just happened. But now it was on record. That night, he stayed late again. Daryl was in the office, door cracked open on the phone. "I don't care what regional says," he was saying. "They want to cut hours, I'll make it work. These kids'll do whatever I tell them. They're lucky to be here." Yarden walked away before he heard more. He'd heard enough. The arrogance. The entitlement. The complete disregard for the law or for people. The next morning, Yarden arrived at corporate headquarters before sunrise. He met with legal, HR, and 2 members of his executive team. He laid out the documentation, the voice recordings, the timestamps. Everything was airtight. By noon, a regional HR manager and legal rep were in Fremont. Yarden followed them into the store, no longer in disguise. Daryl was working the register. When he saw Yarden walk in wearing his usual black blazer, the blood drained from his face. "Mr. Zeller?" You can stop there," Yarden said. "You're done." Daryl opened his mouth, then closed it. The HR manager stepped forward and handed him a folder. "You're being terminated, effective immediately. You'll be escorted while you collect your belongings." Daryl looked like he might argue, but something in Yarden's expression stopped him. He left without another word. Zeller came out from the stockroom, confusion on her face. "What's happening?" she asked. Yarden turned to her.
"He's gone."
"He won't be back." She stared at him. "You're the owner?" He nodded. "I'm Yarden. I've been here the last 10 days. She looked down, then back up. "You saw all of it?" "Every minute." Zeller let out a long breath like she hadn't let herself exhale in weeks. "Can we talk in the office?" Yarden asked. Inside, he sat across from her. "You held this store together through a mess I should have caught sooner," he said. "I should have been paying attention." "I tried to file complaints," she said quietly.
"Twice."
But Daryl intercepted them. Said he'd handle it internally. "After that, I just stopped trying." "I'm not here to excuse that," Yarden said. "I'm here to fix it." He offered her the manager position. Not interim, permanent. With a salary increase, full training support, and a direct line to him and HR. She stared at the desk for a long moment. "I'll do it," she said. "But only if we commit to protecting the team. They've been through more than anyone knows." "We will," Yarden said. "Starting today." He met with the rest of the crew that afternoon. Bree didn't say much at first. Theo stood with his arms crossed, wary. Yarden didn't give them a speech. He just said the truth. "You were let down. That ends now. We're rebuilding this store the right way. And that starts with listening to you." They were quiet, but something shifted. Bree looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Theo asked, "What about our hours? Are they gonna get cut?" "No," Yarden said. "Nobody works off the clock again. Period. And if anyone pressures you, you call this number." He handed out cards with a direct line to a new compliance officer. "You'll be heard." That night, the store closed early. Not because sales were low, but because the team stayed behind, on the clock, to talk through what they wanted the store to become. Not one person left early. No one was silent anymore. The following week, the Fremont store entered a transition period, delicate, tense, and filled with subtle recalibrations. Yarden kept his presence light but visible. He wasn't there to hover, but he wasn't going to detach either. A leadership vacuum had been left in Daryl's absence, and while Zeller had stepped up, the team was still adjusting to the shift in atmosphere. Payroll had to be balanced with care. With no new hires yet and the same small crew, Yarden worked closely with corporate to authorize temporary overtime. It wasn't ideal, but it kept things honest. Every minute on the floor was now counted and paid. No exceptions. He made sure of it by reviewing the time logs personally. One afternoon, Zeller came into the back room holding a clipboard, her voice low. "Bree wants to reduce her hours," she said. "She says she's tired. I think she's just worn down." "She say anything specific?" Yarden asked, looking up from the schedule draft. Zeller paused. "Just that she's trying to catch up on school. And that she's not sure she wants to work retail anymore." He nodded slowly. "Let her set the pace. If she wants fewer shifts, we give them."
No pushing.
He didn't ask for more. He didn't need to. Bree's performance had never been the problem. What she needed now was space to recover her trust in the workplace. Meanwhile, Theo had started asking more questions about operations, how inventory was managed, how new releases were planned. He wasn't shy about it either. During a lull in foot traffic, he approached Zeller while she was logging returns. "How do you know how many units to order?" he asked. "Depends on the season," she said. "And last year's numbers." "We get reports, but there's still guesswork." "Do we ever get to recommend stuff? Like what sells faster here?" That was new initiative. And it wasn't just idle curiosity. He was watching patterns, noticing which models moved and which sat untouched. Zeller glanced at Yarden, who was folding teas nearby. "You hear that?" she said. He looked up. "Sounds like someone wants to learn allocation."
Theo stood.
"I'm just saying nobody ever asked before. But I've got ideas." "You keep watching those trends," Yarden said. "We'll make room for your voice." Later that week, a new hire arrived to transfer from the San Mateo location named Lania. She'd come recommended as reliable and sharp under pressure. The team needed relief, and her experience could reduce some of the scheduling strain. She was in her early 20s, kept her hair tied in a tight bun, and moved with quiet efficiency. On her first day, she spent her lunch break wiping down the break table without being asked. But something about her second shift gave Zeller pause. That evening, she pulled Yarden aside. "Can you watch Lania on register tomorrow?" she asked. "I overheard something weird." "What kind of weird?" She shut Bree down earlier. Customer asked Bree for sizing help. Lania stepped in and redirected the customer like Bree wasn't even there. Didn't acknowledge her. Yarden frowned. Could have been nerves.
Could have been.
But Bree looked deflated. It's worth watching. The next day, Yarden stood back near the accessories wall, pretending to restock hats while listening. Around mid-morning, a Latina teenager approached the register, holding 2 shoeboxes. Bree greeted her, started ringing up the first item. Lania stood nearby, folding receipts. "This one's a final sale," Bree said, pointing to the red tag. The customer hesitated. "Oh, my friend said she returned hers last week." Lania stepped in. "That's not true. Final sale means final. If you don't understand that, I can get a manager." The girl blinked. "I wasn't arguing. You either want it or you don't." Yarden stepped forward immediately. "We're happy to help," he said, voice calm but firm. "Let's walk through it together." The customer nodded slowly. Bree glanced at him, uncertain. After the sale was finished, he pulled Zeller and Lania into the office. Yarden sat across from Lania, expression unreadable. "Tell me what happened at the register," he said. She looked confused. Customer was questioning the policy. "I clarified." "Is that how you'd want to be spoken to?" he asked, voice level. She hesitated. "I wasn't trying to be rude. You weren't trying not to be either." Zeller stayed silent, arms crossed. "This isn't San Mateo," Yarden continued. "We don't treat customers like problems. And we don't override our team unless there's a real mistake." "I thought I was helping," Lania said, more defensive now. "You weren't. You undermined Bree. You embarrassed a customer. And this isn't the first we're hearing about it." He turned to Zeller. "Did you document yesterday?" She handed him a note already written. Yarden read it, then looked back at Lania. "This isn't a fit," he said. "We're ending the assignment here." Lania's mouth opened slightly. "Wait, I just got here." "And we gave you a chance," he said. "But we're not rebuilding a store just to let old habits walk in the door." She left without argument. That afternoon, Yarden sat with Bree during a break. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, slowly. "Didn't feel like a big deal," she said. "I just felt invisible." Again. "It was a big deal," he said. "And you weren't invisible to us." She didn't speak, but her shoulders relaxed a little. By the end of the week, the team was operating with a cautious stability. Hours were still tight. There were still gaps in coverage. But for the first time in a long while, people were showing up without dread in their eyes. Zeller had started implementing small rituals, team huddles before open, where people could flag issues or share wins. It wasn't corporate mandated. She'd started it on a whim, and it stuck. During one of those huddles, Theo shared that he'd organized the stockroom by release date instead of brand, cutting pull time in half. Bree mentioned a customer who'd returned just to say thank you for being patient with his son, who had sensory issues. Yarden didn't speak during those huddles. He just listened. And something slowly began to shift, not loud or dramatic, but steady. A recalibration. A team coming back to life. By the second Monday after Daryl's firing, the Fremont store was holding steady, but raw edges remained. Yarden kept his distance from the front counter while still taking shifts in the back, mostly helping with fulfillment and inventory processing. He made it clear to Zeller that his role was support, not oversight. She had earned the manager title, and she didn't need shadowing. That morning, Zeller was reviewing shipment discrepancies when Theo approached with a folded paper in hand. "I made a chart," he said, placing it on her desk. "It shows which sizes sell fastest by brand. Helps with reorder decisions." She scanned it, nodding. "You pulled this from the POS data?" "And some from our sales logs. Took me 2 nights, but it's accurate." She gave a short laugh, surprised. "You want a shot at handling next week's stock order?" His eyes lit up. "Seriously? You've earned it." He walked out of the office with a new kind of posture, not arrogant, just steady. That afternoon, Yarden met briefly with the regional HR manager in the break room. They reviewed the updated incident protocol, which now required a dual reporting system. Store-level issues were to be logged into a shared corporate channel that couldn't be overridden by local management. "Any new complaints?" Yarden asked.
None.
"But that doesn't mean we're done," the manager replied. "Good," Yarden said. "We're not aiming for quiet. We're aiming for honest." Later that week, a new applicant arrived for an interview, an 18-year-old named Kayla. She'd been referred by a customer who was impressed with how Bree had handled their return. Zeller ran the interview while Yarden helped Bree reorganize a display table. "She seemed sharp," Zeller said afterward. "And she asked about growth, not just shifts." "Let's give her a trial weekend," Yarden said. "We need the coverage."
Kayla started that Friday.
She learned quick, asked questions, and didn't hesitate to help customers without being prompted. But it was her second shift that made her stand out. A man in his 30s came in, clearly agitated. He demanded to return a pair of shoes that were visibly worn, while past the return window. When Kayla calmly explained the policy, he raised his voice and accused her of treating him unfairly because "I'm not dressed like the people you usually help." Yarden had been about to step in, but Kayla didn't flinch. "I'm treating you exactly like everyone else," she said. "And the policy applies equally. That's not personal." Her voice didn't rise, and her tone stayed measured. The man left muttering under his breath, but didn't escalate. When the next customer stepped up, Kayla greeted them the same way she had before, level, respectful, present. Zeller pulled her aside at the end of the shift. "You handled that better than most seasoned staff I've seen," she said. "You good?" Kayla nodded. "I've worked food service. This was nothing. You want to stay on after the trial?" "That'd be great." Kayla became a steady presence on weekends, giving Bree and Theo some breathing room. It didn't erase the strain the team had carried, but it offered something they hadn't had in a long time: relief that didn't come at someone else's expense. One Wednesday morning, Yarden called Zeller into the office. A corporate photographer had reached out. Fremont's store was being considered for a feature on internal rebuilds. She shut the door before responding. "I'm flattered," she said, "but I'm not interested in press. Not yet." "You're not obligated," he said. "It's not that I'm hiding. I just want the team to breathe for a while without being watched. Let them heal before we turn the lights on." He nodded.
Fair.
"We'll hold off." Later that day, a long-time customer named Mrs. Harrell came in with her grandson. She'd been shopping at the store since opening year and hadn't been back since the winter. When she saw Zeller behind the counter, she tilted her head. "You're still here," she said. Zeller smiled. "Still here. Good. Last time I came in, it felt
tight.
Like everyone was scared to speak. Today feels different." "Different's the goal," Zeller said. The boy bought a pair of high tops, and Zeller knelt down to show him how to lace them properly for ankle support. Yarden watched from a distance, not as a boss checking boxes, but as a founder seeing the values he believed in finally return to the surface. That Friday, he scheduled a mandatory after-hours meeting. Everyone was paid for the time. No surprises, no pressure. They gathered around the backroom table, 6 people in all: Zeller, Bree, Theo, Kayla, and 2 newer hires from a nearby location who had been quietly transferred in to help steady the schedule. Yarden stood with a clipboard but didn't hold it like a shield. He set it down. "You all know who I am now," he said. "You've seen me mop, stack boxes, fold teas. What matters to me isn't position, it's how we treat each other. That's what keeps a place alive." He paused. "I made mistakes. I trusted a system that failed you. And I let distance cloud what was happening on the ground. But I won't make that mistake again." No one spoke, and he didn't expect them to. "We're putting in new policies, anonymous feedback lines, rapid HR response, monthly check-ins that go both ways. You'll get a say in more than just your schedule. We want your ideas." Bree raised her hand. "What if someone new comes in and starts throwing weight around? Like Daryl did?" Yarden looked at her directly. "Then they'll be gone. Immediately. We're not negotiating on that." Theo leaned forward. "What about us? Are there ways we can grow, like actually move up? Not just get more hours?" "Yes," Yarden said. "Starting with you. Zyla's assigning you to shadow her during next month's reporting cycle. You'll learn what it looks like to run this place from the back end." Theo glanced at her. She nodded. Bree asked, "What about Kayla?" "She's staying on. And she's getting first pick for the summer schedule."
Kayla blinked.
"Wait, seriously?" Yarden smiled. "You earned it." The room stayed quiet, but not heavy. There was a current underneath the silence, something settling, something restored. Before they left, Yarden handed each of them a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and a prepaid gift card. "This isn't a bonus," he said. "This is recognition. You kept this store alive under pressure no one should have endured. Don't think I didn't notice." They didn't open them right away. They just held them. As they filed out, Zyla lingered behind. "You sure you want to step back again?" she asked. "I have to," he said. "But I'm not disappearing. I've got alerts set on every feedback channel. And every 2 months, I'll be here. Not for a visit to work." She nodded. "You're learning. So are we all." Outside, the lights dimmed. The store stood quiet behind its glass doors. Inside, the shelves were stocked, the signage clean, the team whole. It hadn't been fixed with slogans or policies. It had been rebuilt by hands that stayed late, listened fully, and refused to let silence pass as normal. And now, it belonged to the people who defended it when no one else did.